Okay, so I think we're ready to start. This is our first ever international research showcase, which is a new format. I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the land of Ngunnawal people who are the traditional custodians of this country. Acknowledge that sovereignty to this land has never been ceded, and extend my respect to elders past and present and all First Nations people with us today, both online and in the room. So welcome everybody. We're excited to try this new format of an international research showcase. We thought, we have so many wonderful international visitors. We want to share their research also more broadly and publicly. And it gives us a great opportunity to learn from different experiences of what deliberative democracy can look like in different cultural contexts. So it's a great pleasure to kick off with Kaiping Zhang from the University of Tsinghua University in Beijing. I was very lucky to visit there last year. It's a beautiful campus. It's one of the leading universities in China. So it's a real honor to have you with us, Kaiping. I'll briefly introduce her. Kaiping is an associate professor of political science. She holds a PhD from the Stanford University and is director of the Center for Data and Governance and also the vice dean of the School of Social Sciences. Her research focuses on deliberative democracy, political communication, Chinese politics, and computational social sciences. So we're very happy you're here. Thanks for being here. And we'll hear for about a half an hour from Kaiping, and then we'll open up for about a half an hour of conversation among us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Han, and thank you, everyone. Thank the Center for Deliberative Democracy for inviting me to this beautiful campus to escape from the brutal winter in Beijing.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a better audience than this. I mean, I have been reading many of the work from Baogang, Zhang, and Hendrik, and many scholars since my graduate studies. So it's really honored to be here. So today I'm going to talk about, I think it's a combination of the previous research I've been doing in the past 2-3 years and ongoing research. So it's about deliberative democracy in China and the digital transformation of participation in China. And it's really a great honor to be the first speaker of this new series. So I have to say that I prepared this talk for like broad audience. So we start from this question: why China? Why platforms? And why Teahouses? But for this audience, I think these questions we don't need much explanations. So why China? Given China's geography, large population size, and especially the long-standing tradition of centralized state control and hierarchical ruling spanning over 2,000 years. So it makes a distinct comparative case for political development. So although it has experienced more than 3 decades of faster economic growth and modernization, which brought about a substantial body of middle class and fast adoption of digital technologies, China has seen little a sign of transiting into a liberal democracy. But over the past decade, especially since Xi Jinping's era, so China has proposed its own concept of, China socialist deliberative democracy, and more recent years, the whole process democracy, which umbrellas the deliberative democracy in China. So this model departs further from this liberal model, defining democracy according to election, the Schumpeter or Sartorian notion of democracy, and instead they emphasize government responsiveness, policy deliberation, and mass supervision. So China, in that case, stands out as a distinct comparative case for political continuity and drastic transformation. coexist. And then why platforms? I mean, since Jim Fishkin and Baogang conducted their landmark deliberative polling in China 20 years ago, and Baogang and Mark Ward published the piece on authoritarian deliberation. Over a decade has passed, and in this period, so China, along with many other countries in the world, has moved into a new era of digital governance or AI governance. So that shift raises a new set of questions. For instance, how does it transform the idea and practices of democracy, and when participation, is reorganized through platforms? So does expanding those digital accesses really mobilize civic participation? And then why Teahouses? So much of our thinking about the tradition of deliberation begins in the in ancient Greece, but deliberation also over ideal models of policy and governance also took place among intellectuals in China, in early China, around 7th BCE. For instance, in my hometown, the state of Qi, where the Confucius and Menciuses were born. So deliberation was practiced through dialogue and exchange among political elites and intellectuals under this Jixia Academy. And our thinking about modern deliberation usually begins with everyday social practices. Habermas traces deliberation to places like salons and cafes in the 18th century Europe, or to the social life emerged from everyday interactions, as Putnam argues. But parallelly, tea houses played a similar role in China. So they were everyday spaces where discussions and conflict resolutions were embedded in daily life. And taking tea houses seriously, I think, will allow us to see how deliberation takes distinctive, historically grounded forms. So this is what I will talk about in the next 30 minutes. So first, I'll talk about ideas and practices, deliberative democracy in China very briefly. Then we will narrow down to the case of Chengdu, which I have spent quite a few years to study, especially when deliberative traditions meet digital platforms. And third, I will draw from the history. I'm not a historian, but this is the first time I do some archival work to see how tea houses has become a deliberative infrastructure in the history. And concluding remark, I will compare Chengdu and Beijing, two very predominant models of digital democracy in China these days, and to see which historical trajectory have led to the diverging path of these two models. So practice, ideas and practices. I would trace this to I Ching, which my colleague Tan Guosheng in Tsinghua has written in Chinese and has done quite a lot of research on this. So I Ching is a book of change. It's the foundational Chinese classic, originating in around 1000 BCE. Basically, it conceptualizes social and political order through the patterns of change, relations, balance. So within this tradition, there is this hexagram dui. Before I explain it, can anyone guess what is it like? What does it represent? It's hard. I know it's hard. So it's
like Minecraft.
Minecraft?
A building.
A building?
Tetris.
I'm sorry.
Q-code.
So for the ancient Chinese, they symbolize it as lake over lake. Yeah. So it means that when waters meet, they communicate. And when positions differ, they will resonate. So basically, when two lakes are connected, their waters circulate and respond to each other, which generates resonance and joy. so later philosophical commentaries apply this philosophy in governance and say that basically this term here, persuasion transforms governance, using labor, overcoming fear, and mobilizing collective commitment. So when you see this is a pair of lake over lake. So that also means that that joy is grounded in collective alignment, like firm in principle but gentle in their expression. So when people who share similar normative values come together and guide each other towards common understanding, I think that to me that resonates the spirit of deliberative democracy. So in Doi, deliberation is really conceived as this relational process, both within oneself, the two halves within self, and among participants, the upper part and the lower part, deliberation within and between each other. So across thousands of years, this governing logic reappears in different forms. So as China is the only society that keeps its territory, culture, and people in the same sovereign nation state. So moral governance, together with this set of legacies, including centralized authority and the mandate of the heaven, combination of Confucius, legalism, ideology, strong bureaucracy, so merit-based selection of officials, they form an ultra-stable equilibrium that uphold the imperial China for over 2,000 years. And then when the Communist Party came to take over, they preserved the logic of the institution, and Mencius's idea of Minben, people-centered moral rule, then transforms to the CCP's method line, which institutionalizes governance through close ties to the people. So these principles form the underlying philosophical foundation for deliberative democracy in China today. Then since the late 1920s, China gradually built formal institutions of consultation and deliberation. And a major turning point came in 2015 when deliberative democracy was explicitly defined as part of the socialist democracy. And consists of 7 core elements, like the blue squares show. And then also in 2015, with the digital infrastructure penetrating the bureaucracy, society, economy, so new forms of deliberation began to shape. So if we think of deliberation or digital democracy in China nowadays, I would think of them in 2 dimensions. So the left side means the institutionalized consultation, meaning from the CPC, the Chinese People's Congress, and CPPCC, the Chinese political consultative meetings. These are the institutionalized. And on the right side are the innovative forms of public participation. For instance, we call the local leaders message board, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 civil servants hotline, and digital participation, which I will talk about in Chengdu. So these are the newer innovative form. And the other dimension is deliberation between social groups and within social groups. So the upper part are deliberation between social groups. For instance, the government public and people's consultative meetings. So those representatives need to go consult the people and bring their opinions back to the consultative meeting. So this between. And the lower part are the deliberation within social groups. For instance, within the political community, the political consultative meeting, the CPPCC is the elite body of deliberation, and also within the public, the digital participation. So I think that will give us 4 different types of digital forms of deliberation: oversight, expression, consultation, and participation. I actually prepared quite some cases, but for the sake of time, I would just go through them very quickly. For instance, this is the where Baogang and Jim Fishkin did the deliberative polling in China, in Zhejiang, and nowadays they turn to this People's Congress digital pilot. It's whole digitally restructured, and this is the digital consultation. And digital expression. This is the Beijing model.
This is what I really found this one interesting because it's what everything in one century. Really interesting 60,000 cases about every aspect. And for the last 5 years, we tracked around 300,000 requests. So scale of requests.
It's really something.
Okay.
Which is what I mean.
And this is the digital participation. For instance, the Black Tea Deliberative Assembly in Hangzhou and Chengdu, which I will talk about now. So the second part, so I want to zoom into the fourth category of digital participation, because that's the real, citizen empowerment forms that we are interested in. So I'll talk about Chengdu. How many of you have been to Chengdu? So if you have, you probably know it's very famous for three things: Panda, Hot Pot, and the Teahouses. So this Chengdu has been doing this participatory budgeting since 2009, since 2020 they have invented a new Yiguanjia platform to bring the whole PB process online. And we conducted our studies in 2021 and 2022, the first full cycle of digital PB. So this is how Chengdu's
保障资金一管家小程序居民注册方式如下：点击进入首页，点击右下角我的按钮后，开始进行居民注册，点击居民登录，点击允许获取手机号，填写相关居民信息，并选择居民所属社区。 点击手机号以便注册，再点击允许获取手机号，注册成功。居民参与方式如下：民意征集阶段，居民提议在首页点击项目征集，再点击我要提议，输入提议内容，点击提交审核，提议完成，等待审核。民意征集阶段，居民投票，在首页点击项目征集，再点击我要查看，进行投票支持。居民可支持提议，也可取消支持。议事会议决阶段，议事会成员投票，在首页点击议事会议决。 再点击我要投票，进行投票支持。居民可支持议决项目，也可取消支持。议事会议决阶段，居民查看议决项目，在首页点击议事会议决，再点击我要查看，进行查看。项目发包阶段，居民查看发包项目其中标方，在首页点击项目发包，再点击我要查看，进行查看。项目实施阶段，居民监督，在首页点击项目实施，再点击我来监督，再点击居民监督，填写监督信息，点击确认提交，监督成功。项目实施阶段，居民查看。 在首页点击项目实施，再点击我来查看，可查看项目实施情况以及居民监督信息。项目评议阶段，居民评议，在首页点击民主评议，再点击我要评议，进行打新评价。项目评议阶段，居民查看，在首页点击民主评议。
So this is how the platform works. So now so over 3 million residents have registered in this platform, and they allocate 1.4 billion RMB per year.
How much is that? Dollars or euros?
RMB. So divide by 7. I think it's divide by 7.
保障资金一管家小程序。
So basically, we have studied how granting this digital access would influence participation, equality, effectiveness, and attitudes. And we collected the anonymous digital traces on the platform for a whole year. And budget proposals, and we did 2 rounds of survey before and after the launch of the digital platform, and we also invited those residents to leave their phone number voluntarily to match their platform behavior, so this is basically, the finding is that the stimulated broad participation due to this introduction of a new platform really mobilized people's participation. As you can see, this peak is in the proposal submission period. But after that, engagement dropped significantly. in later stages, deliberation, supervision, announcement, evaluation, browsing. And with 10% of registration, so resident participation in PV increased from around 17 to 25%. And we did the causal inference using the matching method, and basically we find that digitalization increased budgeting participation by 7.1%. And this effect is especially pronounced among the less advantaged group, including the primary school education and lower to middle income and middle-aged group. And about half of the users registered never used it on the platform. And by linking their responses from the survey and their real behavior, we find that it's the private concern and user experience predict their weak participation. And we found about 11% participated in 2 stages. Some participated in 3 or more stages, and also using the questionnaires we found is the political efficacy and digital empowerment predicting more sustained engagement. And we also did some causal mediation analysis and found that really this reform impacted their satisfaction with grassroots democracy through the mediation of participation. There is also a spillover effect. So especially among the non-participants, the higher level of democratic satisfaction is observed. But when people do participate, their satisfaction actually decreases. Maybe they get disillusioned after actually use it. And there is also empowerment effects. So it's increased perception of digital empowerment, especially among women, lower income, and urban residents. And we also found this effect by different individual characteristics. For the sake of time, I will skip that part. And the third part is the echo from the history. So, in this part, I asked the question: is governance in China purely digital governance in China purely top down, or is it historically rooted? So why does this DPB take place in Chengdu, not elsewhere? For instance, Beijing took a very different model. Is there historical evidence that could predict this different path? So as you can see throughout the history, Chengdu, is located in the southwest China. It's very far away from the political center. So that created a relatively independent and stable environment. So for the rise of civil spaces like tea houses. And there's this famous saying that a tea house is a small Chengdu and Chengdu is a large tea house. So this is the history of tea houses in Chengdu. Basically, the tea houses emerged in Tang Dynasty in the 7th to 9th century, and in Song Dynasty, the 9th to 11th century, tea houses culture continued to flourish. And during Yuan Dynasty, the 20 to 13, when China was ruled by the Mongols, tea houses continued to thrive. And during Qing Dynasty, so the number of tea houses surged. And by the time of 1912, when the Qing Dynasty collapsed, the tea houses in China really, serve diverse function for the society. And post the PRC, there's very significant transformation and revival after the open and reform after Deng Xiaoping. So now tea houses become a important carrier for popular culture and leisure culture. So I digged into the history. So in early 20th century, according to this journalist, Fu Chongqu, so Chengdu had already 454 tea houses on 500 streets. Basically, every street has a tea house. And with the population of 600,000, about 1/5 visit tea house every day. It's really an everyday space where people gather and exchange information, mediate disputes, and discuss public affairs. So it's you can see from the picture, these are like ear-picking craftsmen and storytelling and blind fortune tellers. There's a very famous novel written by Sichuan novelist Li Jieren called Before the Storm. He in the novel he wrote that Republican era Chengdu tea houses served three key functions: markets for commercial exchange, venues for public gathering and dispute mediation, and living rooms or resting spaces for ordinary people. So like tea houses were really the places where people get their hot water. Back then it's really hard to get hot water to boil things. They prepare herbal medicine and simmer soup there, and also watch Sichuan opera. And this is also where the cotton yarn, clothes, grain, cooking oil were bought and sold. And in Chengdu, so tea houses really serve as this like public space sphere, I would argue, which serve as a communal social hub for information change, as a hub for entertainment and labor market, and most important, this conflict resolution. So in Chengdu, there's the conflicts were often solved over tea. So that through this practice called 吃讲茶, so people would talk things over in a tea house with a mediator helping both sides, and to help them to reach the common ground. And they talk it through until everyone is persuaded. Then whoever loses pay for the tea. And there are actually significant historical events in tea houses. For instance, after World War I, the French consulate held a celebratory tea party at local tea house, and this Zhongxin tea house, they host a business negotiate meeting very frequently, and women were initially excluded from tea houses, but a formal petition secured this official approval for women to enter the tea house at least in the daytime for this exclusive session. And so given this pronounced role the tea houses play in social life, so it becomes a contested public sphere. For instance, state regulation started in the early 20th century, and it becomes a space for social education and the new life movement. It also becomes a space for civic engagement when people exchange information and opinion. So, for instance, during the 1911 railway protection movement, so it becomes a political hub for grassroots mobilization and opinion expression. And I have a few cases, but I probably don't have time to go over each of them. But if we are interested, we can talk more during the Q&A session. And so this is the change of numbers of tea houses in Chengdu throughout the 20th century. And in many ways, so the rise and fall of tea houses over the 20th century really tells us about how state has intervened in society and tightened state control, from the KMT era, then later under PRC era. And so I think tea house is really this deliberative infrastructure. One is it's open and low threshold access. Basically, you can find all kinds of social classes, from intellectuals to businessmen to the lower class. And it's a routine interaction as social capital, accumulation, and it's persuasion-based conflict resolution venue. Then it's where state and society interferes. So today, I think Chengdu has more NGOs than any other cities in China. They work on a range of social issues, like community development, left behind children. So I think when we talk about PB in Chengdu, so we're not just talking about a top-down government initiative. It's a deep-rooted culture of civic engagement that has been shaped by centuries of public life in tea houses. And like lastly, I want to very briefly talk about the different paths that were taken in Beijing. So like in Beijing, there's also very famous novel written by Lao She. It's called the Teahouses, and you can see from in the middle of the picture. So there are 4 characters. It means do not talk about political affairs. So in the tea house, right? So like similarly as like Chengdu. So the peak of prosperity and social inclusiveness of tea houses in Beijing peaked in Yuan dynasty and throughout the Qing dynasty. The major change started from the, after the collapse of the Qing dynasty and more dramatically in the PRC period when it served as the, the political center for PRC. And it was constructed. And after the 1978, the open and reform, it now becomes a site for tourism and business and high-end consumption. So it not like every day, social life takes place. So like in these cases, I just looked over the how state regulation tightened the control over tea houses over time. So basically, I argue that different diverging paths toward digital democracy, one, the geography close to the political center or distance from the center, and state influence, its own civic culture, and these will determine how they will use digital tools when those technologies become available for governance. So to conclude, I think in terms of the path towards digital democracy, institution, technology, and history, they all matters. For institution, I think the China case already shows that deliberation exists outside liberal democracy, and it's embedded in governance practices. When new technologies become available, there are new forms of digital democracy, this digital tools can really mobilize civic participation, but with some limitations, as I have shown. And the last part is that the social infrastructure of deliberation really explains why the digital governance diverge across different places. And so I think with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you.